Welcome to the Student Ministry Matters podcast. We want to encourage, equip, and connect those with a passion to impact the next generation for Jesus Christ. Student ministry can be a lonely place. You might even feel like you're the only one in your church or community that cares about students. Well, know this, you're not alone. People all across the country are engaging Gen Z and care deeply about the spiritual direction of these young men and women. Whether you're full-time, part-time, bivocational, or volunteer, if you have a heart for students, this is the place for you.
Welcome again to the Student Ministry Matters podcast. I'm Dan Carson. I've got with me my friend Chris Vines.
Hey Dan, how you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm excited always to be back talking about student ministry. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the summer months. As we get closer and closer to that, this episode should be releasing the first part of May. And hopefully you've got your big chunks of your summer already planned, but the small things, the things to fill in, we want to talk about those and talk about some inexpensive ideas that you can look at as you serve your students. But before we get to that, I want to thank our podcast partners, Central Baptist College of Conway, Arkansas. Central Baptist College is challenging, engaging, and inspiring. And if you're looking for a Christ-focused education for your students, whether they are your own children or the students that are in your ministry, have them check out cbc.edu. It's a great place. And in fact, they are one of our big sponsors for our Student Ministry Workers Treat that we have scheduled in September. And I would just want to encourage you to check that out. September the 17th, 2022. It's a one-day retreat that we host on their campus. We spend some time talking about a lot of different things. We have breakout groups. Sam Burig and Jared Bumpers are going to be our two featured speakers for the day. And I am excited because yesterday I just received a batch of books from the Good Book Company and got confirmation from Crossway that they're going to send us a book. And it's always exciting as we start filling up our goodie bags. We try to give out a goodie bag to the first 100 registers. And so be sure you get that all checked out and join us. It's an inexpensive retreat. It's $25 right now for the first 22 people because it's 2022. I'm a dork, I know. But if you wait until after that, it's going to cost you $30 plus the fee. So right now is the best time to get registered. And again, that's going to be at Central Baptist College. Well, again, the summer months are right around the corner. And so, Chris, what are some big things that you have scheduled this summer?
Kind of our typical stuff. There's our mission trip that will be going on. We call that Advance. And so each year we do an advanced mission trip. And so got that planned. Of course, we'll be going to SOAR down in Dallas at the Hilton Anatole. Sorry, I went blank on the hotel there. But going down to SOAR. And so those are big. And then, I know a lot of people do camp. We don't do camp. It's just never been, I think we've talked about that on a previous podcast, but it's not because I'm against camp. I love camp. It's just never been part of the rhythm of our student ministry. And I've tried before to introduce it. And it just makes it hard on parents, especially with the cost of doing, if we try to do 3 big things in the summer, I find it just makes it hard on parents. And so I've actually traded in our camp with a retreat that we do later in the year just to try to spread out the cost and things that we do. So, so those are the big things for us. What about you guys?
Well, it is a time of transition at Calvary. That's the best way I could describe it. For years, I've tried to get our students excited about SOAR. They went when they were too young. That's probably the best description. It was a period where SOAR wasn't as great as it is now. And so getting them excited about it again has been difficult. But man, I would encourage any of you to check out the SOAR conference for a big event to take your students to. There's a lot of fun involved now, as well as some great teaching. I know that Brad Falk is the featured speaker. And then we're also having Brian Reisner, who is a missionary to Romania. And I'm sure he'll be sharing a little bit about everything that's been going on with Ukraine. There's a lot of good things about that. We try a lot of the smaller events just to get together and work on those relationships. And so it's those smaller things in mind that we kind of want to talk about. The big trips, they cost lots of money. At times it can be a whole lot of money. Mission trips, you save up for them. People get excited because they're sending their students somewhere to do something for the gospel, and it's exciting. They send them to SOAR conference because they learn, they get just a great experience focused around, again, the gospel. And then a lot of churches go to church camp. Church camp has always been on our radar. It has been a part of the culture here in Northwest Arkansas with the Ozarks Baptist Encampment, and we love that camp. And in fact, last year, Chris, you spoke at that camp. And
I did.
A bunch of good people there. But again, those things all cost so much that there's little room for spending a lot more each day, and it just gets hard. So we want to talk about that. We want to look at some inexpensive ideas, and we'll get to those in just a moment. But I want to talk about principles for choosing your activities, and whether it is the smaller things during the summer months or maybe during the school year, or even if you're looking at those bigger things, maybe some of these principles apply. But I've got 3 questions that I think you should ask. And the first one is this, is what purpose does it serve? Chris, you and I have talked a little bit about that before. How do you handle that question as you look at your choices for activities?
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. I think everything needs to come back to a purpose. So in other words, we don't just do things loosey-goosey, but we want to have a reason for why we do things. And I mean, I know I think I'm gonna get to your question, but I would say this, that, the reason this question is so important is because if you're going to ask kids, if you're going to ask parents and if you're going to ask your church to invest money in something, then you better have a good reason for why you're doing it. And I've never been okay with the answer of it's just because what we've always done. And so I think it needs to go deeper than that. And so whenever I think through purpose, I like to think in terms of spiritual renewal, right? So Scripture says that we are to be renewing our minds, and I believe that we do that primarily through exposure to the Word of God, the infallible truth. But we also do that through fellowship and through community. And so when I think about purpose, I think in terms of the spiritual health of our group. Is this going to lead us to be more conformed to the image of Christ as we sit underneath the Word of God preached and taught? I think in terms of community, it's okay for the purpose just simply to be, let's go have some fun, and get together as a group. So I think through those different elements, and then also I would probably add, and this might fall underneath that community aspect, but really I think in terms of church togetherness, one anotherness, and so some of the things that we do, some of the things that we put on the agenda have to do with getting the generations together, and making sure that we're not just the youth group out there, but that we are in fact all the church.
One of the things that I really appreciate you sharing, the idea, it's okay for it just to be about fun. I mean, students love fun. I love fun. We want to do that. We want to make it a part. But I think the root becomes, what is the purpose? We want to be intentional. I think that's important, as you said, when you're talking to your parents or you're talking to the lead pastor. Why are we doing this? The big question mark. I had a Taekwondo instructor as you would teach under him, and you would be up in the front of a group, and he would draw a little question mark on his head just so that you could see it, not that the class could see it, but it said, why are you doing that? And that's important as we go forward. So when you're choosing your activities, think about what purpose does it serve. It can be about fun. It can be about community. It can be about spiritual renewal. It can be evangelistic in nature. It can be about bringing your generations together. And that's always a great thing with the church. A couple other questions when you're looking at your activities or whatever it is. Number 2 that I have is it safe? Now, there have been days when student ministry didn't ask that question too much. And I look back even on my own student ministry and think, that probably wasn't a great idea. But as we deal with other people's children, we have to ask that. And there's some books out there that you can find that talk about safety with your students. But just really ask the question, would the parents be okay with this? That's a great place to start. But then we want them to be safe, both physically. We want them to be safe spiritually. So that's one of the reasons we have to gauge what they're being taught at an event. And we want them to be safe emotionally. All sides of that coin, all sides of a coin. The coin only has two. All sides of that Rubik's Cube, we'll go with that. So.
Yeah. That has at least three sides.
At least three sides. Now, and number 3 are these principles for choosing your activities. Is it affordable? And that's going to be what we're talking about today. So often we can get very excited about taking our students to a concert, a conference, an event, just going and having a great time. Let's go camping, or let's go. And camping can be an inexpensive idea, and that may be on Chris's list. But as you look at these different things, we have to think about, is it affordable, and especially affordable for our group? Some groups, they have more disposable income. Other groups, it's all they can do to go to McDonald's and get an ice cream, and that's it. That's what we have to think about, because if we don't think about the affordability, then we're immediately going to exclude some of our students, and we never want to do that. We don't want to make anyone feel less than because they can't afford to be involved. So those are some questions, some principles I think that we need to think about as we choose our different activities. And Chris, I think you've got a great list for us, some 10 things that are inexpensive summer fun. Let's start with those.
Yeah, man. So, like I told you earlier, this list is certainly not exhaustive, and it's far from spectacular or perfect. But lists like this, as I'm listening to other people read things like these, it sparks ideas for me. And so I'm hoping that it might have that same effect for our listeners. That you might be reminded of some things that you're already doing and already have planned or have done in the past. Maybe you hear something that's new, and you want to try it out, or maybe it just sparks an idea that we're not even talking about. But hey, man, you just let your creativity, run wild with it. But the first thing that I wrote down, and this is something that we do as a youth group, is we go to the lake one day. And before I get too deep into this, let me first say that the summer is a great opportunity for you to do things that are out of the norm of regular rhythm as a student ministry. So like for us throughout the school year, we're in our youth building every Wednesday night, with a few exceptions where we have different serve nights and things like that. But and we're sitting underneath the Word of God. We're being taught. We're in our groups, all those kind of things, and they're great. I love that. But the summer is just a kind of a hyphenated part of the year where we get to do things a little bit in a little unusual way. And so I've set up, and I've done this for I think every year that I've been here, and I've probably stole this idea from somebody. So I'm not going to take full credit for it, but we do something called Wandering Wednesdays, and so every Wednesday we are in a different location for youth ministry, for our youth group. So we just get outside of our building, right? I want to get out of the norm. I want to get other church members involved. So we might be at a church member's house, and I'll get to that. But one of those days we'll go to the lake. We'll spend time at the lake. I've got a couple of church members that of course have boats, and they like to use their boats, and they like to pull people on tubes and stuff like that. So I got them lined up, and man, they're excited about going to the lake with us. And, and they're also very generous where, I offer to pay for their gas, but they don't want me to, and all this kind of stuff. So it tends to be a very cheap day. I get sandwich stuff, snacks, that kind of thing. But then we're just spending time together on the lake, having a good time. And so that's a fun thing to do. So find a local lake and go do that if you can. Another thing that I would mention, a second thing, is a canoe trip. In Arkansas, there are a lot of opportunities to go jump on a river and float down the river in a canoe. This one does have a little bit of expense to it. I think a canoe is normally somewhere around $25 for, to rent for the day, but you got two people in it. And so you can, 12, $13, the kids can float in a canoe, and it's a full day of fun. And you always make good memories on a canoe trip because you're going to flip, you're going to splash people and all that kind of stuff. And so that's always fun for us. A third one, and Dan, if I'm go too fast through these, let me know. But a third one on my list is go to a local park. You just get out of your building, go have youth group at a local park. It doesn't have to be anything fancy other than just, hey, you know what, we're going to go set up a tent, have some ice chests, do some snacks, but we're going to play ultimate frisbee. Maybe you got a 9 square, set that up. Maybe some bago, things like that. Just get outside and go to a local park, enjoy your community and enjoy time together as a group that way.
The park is easy, it's fun, it's cheap. Yeah, one of the things that we have done over the years is just meet up on Thursdays for lunch with anybody that could in the student ministry, and you'd spend 2 to 3 hours there. Now, I love all of these first three. The biggest problem with me is they're outside, and my allergies and the sun are not my friend. But they are inexpensive, and it is great to get your group outside to enjoy the great creation that God has provided.
That's right. I do like getting outside. I think there's some benefit to that. But this fourth one it doesn't have to be outside, and it's just simply, make a list of some church members, 2 or 3, and go visit them. Go visit some church members. Call before you go.
Yeah.
Let them know that you might be bringing the whole youth group over. Don't just show up on their doorstep with, 25 people or even, 6 people. But make some plans to go visit some people that you haven't seen in a while that you want your youth group to know. I know for us, we have a list of ladies, who are widows in our church, and there's obviously opportunities to serve. But every time I get to visit with those ladies, I'm reminded of the fact that they just love when people come by to visit and talk, right? And it's great for the youth group to go and just spend some time enjoying the company of a church member. And so that's something that we enjoy doing.
And this is just something that just came to mind, so it might not work, but that whole idea of visiting with your group, you could invite them to basically a picnic on their front lawn. You bring over sandwich stuff, the rest of the group's out there, especially for some of these widow women. That could be a really beneficial and uplifting thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that still gets you outside though, Dan. I'm trying to help you out, get you inside. But no, you're right. We love, a lot of times there's yard work to do, that kind of thing. And so there's different ways. You can make it a serving time for your group. But yeah, I just think it's good to, I want our teenagers to know that we have faithful church members, who, many of them are shut-ins, but they're still very faithful church members. They would be with us every Sunday, Wednesday, if they physically could, but they can't. And a lot of times, because they're not present, they can go forgotten. They can be forgotten. And of course, we know how easy that can be. And I just want teenagers to be aware that we have faithful church members around us. And many, and listen, I'm blessed with an amazing faith family. We're far from perfect, but I think I can speak generally here that when you call a church member and you say, hey, we would love to just come visit. I'd love for you to meet the youth group. I'd love for us just to spend some time together. I don't know of many people who would not want that, who would deny that. Anyway, there's an idea for you. Hey, here's another one, inside for you. Go bowling. Bowling still has some cost to it, but there's ways to make it cheap. You don't have to bowl for hours on end. A lot of times a bowling alley might have a dollar night or something like that, but bowling is always a fun. We're going bowling here in the next, I think in about a month, we're going bowling. So bowling, and then going back outdoors, outdoor movie. All right. This is number 6 on my list. We've done an outdoor movie. Now I will say this, keep in mind with an outdoor movie, it's better for it to be dark right? So that you can actually see your projection set up. Now, not everybody has the equipment for this, but you don't have to have much. I mean, goodness, I mean the little portable projectors are pretty cheap now. You can find one on Amazon for not much money at all. And then if you've got a good white bed sheet,
Right.
you can use one of those. Make sure it's not one of your kids' bed sheets that they've maybe stained accidentally, But you can hang that up outside, and it's fun. We've done this before, but my warning to you is on this one. It tends to be a later night because you've got to wait for it to the sun to go down so that you can see the screen, see the movie, and then But I've had it over at my house before where kids just bring chairs, set up lawn chairs. We have hot dogs, watch a movie. I think the last movie we watched, probably going to get judged by this, but that's okay, was The Princess Bride. I had a lot of people that had never seen The Princess Bride, and so we watched A Love Story.
And it is a classic, though. It is a
I
classic.
know. I was like, there's a couple of things in here but listen, I mean, it's a safe movie. I mean, it's a safe movie. So I'm not, I may lose some friends over this, but I don't like cheesy Christian movies. I just don't like them.
Yeah.
So there you go. If we lose podcast listeners over that, I'm sorry, Dan, but I just don't like cheesy Christian movies. Our next movie night might be Star Wars. I don't know. And so, hey, so here's one that I looked up and just was kind of trying to spark ideas in my mind. A scavenger hunt, some kind of picture scavenger hunt on a Wednesday night. Divide your group up into small groups. Have an adult leader load up in a car. Give them a list of things to go, take pictures of. And man, that's always fun, to do something like that. Have you ever done anything like that, Dan?
I have. I have done a lot of those scavenger hunts over the years. You used to, and this is dating myself, you would go out and you would get those items and you would bring them back. And that was always a little crazy. But I have done with phones. We did an Instagram one, but the issue there is that some of your students may not have a social media account. And so simply using their phones to snap a picture, that's easy enough. They can either text them to you if you want to do that. I did a video scavenger hunt at one point, and we showed the videos as we came back and we ate pizza. Again, inexpensive meal, but we had a chance to actually watch some of the craziness that we'd make them do. They'd have to dance here or recite a verse there, or it's fun and it's inexpensive and it gets your students interacting. And if you can place them in a group that they're not normally connected with, if they bring a visitor, keep those together, but otherwise you can mix and match your group with a lot of fun results.
Exactly. We did, I was this is before I was in ministry, but I was volunteering. Sydney and I were married, but we were at a church and they did a D-Now type weekend.
Right.
And part of that Saturday, they did something called Bigger or Better. And it was a blast. It was fun. But every group, we were already broken up into our groups. Every group got started with a paperclip. And then you had 2 hours as a group to go throughout. We were down in Arlington, Texas, so it's a much bigger place than Hope, Arkansas. But we had 2 hours to go out into Arlington, right, to trade our paperclip for something bigger or better, right? And at the end of 2 hours, every group was to bring back whatever their item is. So the way it worked is we went to a garage sale. We told the person, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the paperclip. Do you have anything that you'd be willing to just trade, for a paperclip, right? Anything bigger or better? And they would give us something. So we got, I don't know what we got exactly. I can't remember that, but that's the first thing we got. And then you take that item and you go try to trade it. You got 2 hours to keep trading up to something bigger or better. Dude, at the end of that 2 hours, our group didn't win. You're going to ask me what we got. I can't even remember what we got, but I do remember that one group they rolled in a car. Someone had given them an old car, a broke down car that had been sitting in their driveway. And they had rolled it up to the church. And it had leaves and grime and all this kind of stuff on it. But the one that won was they had gone to I think it was either a newly a renovated McDonald's or something like that. And it was like they were still very good, but all the old light fixtures that they took out and replaced, they gave them that. And so that the value of that ended up being like close to $5,000. So they went from a paperclip to about $5,000 worth of lights. And immediately I was thinking, man, this church knows what they're doing, because everybody signed an agreement that they don't keep the stuff. The church keeps the stuff if they want it. Anyway. So
did they want the old car? That's the question.
No,
no, they would not.
They were like, keep that, get it out of here. But it was amazing. So anyway, I went down that rabbit hole, but you could do something like that. That's fun. That's fun. Here's another one for you. You know, most kids have access to or have their own Nerf guns, right? Or you can go buy some cheap ones. Have a Nerf War, you know. You can do this inside, outside, whatever, you know, but just have a Nerf night and make it fun. So I think the last time we did it, we did Nerf and nachos.
Nerf and nachos. That's a fantastic thing. I actually was watching after Christmas, my local Walmart stores up here had some of those high speed ones, the ones that would shoot out like, I don't know, 90 miles an hour or whatever. I mean,
with the little balls.
Yeah. And I was able to I have 2 sets of those things. And so I can have like 14 people. So they're teams of 7 or 8 playing against each other. And man, those are great guns, but yeah, they kind of hurt if you get too close.
Yeah, you gotta have some eye protection for those, man.
Well, that was the other thing I had to buy. I think I may have spent more on eye protection than I did on the actual guns themselves.
Yeah. I will say this again, you know, we're talking about low cost things here, and we know that Nerf guns can be expensive. So like there's a cheap way to do this though. Have kids bring their own.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time we'd had a Nerf night. Of course, I encourage everybody to bring their own, but I did make a small investment in buying a few cheaper Nerf guns and the darts, all the ammunition, that kind of thing, which you can go on Amazon and buy bulk ammunition. It's off brand, but it still works, you know, for fairly inexpensive. And, but then once you have that stuff, unless you're doing it outside where ammunition can be lost, like we did it in our gym, then that stuff is reusable. So I just have all that stuff boxed up and it's ready for the next event. So it's not like a recurring cost that I'm having to endure. You know, we can come back to it, and I've got a supply of Nerf guns. The hard part is when you've got a supply of Nerf guns, you've got to keep the kids out of the Nerf guns on the regular Wednesday nights. Yes. Otherwise, you've got just a constant problem of picking up darts. And I got that at my house already. So my boys love Nerf. Hey, here's another one. This one's not original to me at all, but I found it online and I loved it. It's a BYOM Bbq, a bring your own meat barbecue. So, and this is one of those that you can actually combine with another one, like visiting a church member. Man, find somebody in your church who is really good at you know, grilling, so that you don't have to worry about that, who loves to grill and has a great grill. See if they would be willing to host, and then have everybody just, you know, bring their own meat to the barbecue, you know. As I thought about this, you know, again, we never want people to feel inferior, right? So you might say something like, hey guys, don't be bringing any ribeyes, you know, while somebody else is bringing like a little flank steak or a burger or something like that. You might put some boundaries on it and say, hey, you know, just bring your own meat, you know, here's what you can bring, and that kind of thing. And maybe even invite them to bring something for someone else as well, you know, bring a guest or provide for somebody else. But anyway, I thought that was a cool idea of just doing something a little in a cheap way. I got 2 more. One's an honorable mention. Hike a trail, right? In Arkansas, we've got a bunch of trails or mountains, right? Just pick a day and go visit a mountain, go hike a trail, get out there and do that as a youth group. And then the last thing I would mention is as something to do is, man, have a board game night or a card game. I played a game the other day with a youth group up in Russellville. Mike Hoke, Mike,
I believe.
Hoke. Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry. I should know how you pronounce your last name. If you're listening to this, I apologize. But he introduced me to a game called Cards Christians Like.
Oh,
And
yeah.
dude, I never heard of it before, but it's a lot like Apples to Apples, or I think they compared it to Cards for Humanity. I don't know. I've never played that one. But anyway, Cards Christians Like was a blast. I mean, we played that thing for close to 2 hours and it didn't
Yeah.
feel like it. And you just have a great time as a group. And anyway, I went kind of long, but there's my list. Hopefully that sparks some ideas, gives you some cheap things to think about. The last thing I would say on this is a lot of times I filter these in. I put these in on Wednesday nights. Some of these, like a lake day, I might schedule on a Saturday, just depending on how many chaperones I need. It's sometimes hard to get, adult chaperones in the middle of the week, when you're doing stuff like that. So, keep all that kind of thing in mind when you start making the schedule. But also, you guys who are listening to this, your group better than we do, right?
Yeah.
And so these
Yeah.
are ideas, but it doesn't mean that they're going to fit everybody's group. Some of you guys might not be listening to this in the state of Arkansas, and you might not have trails, all over the place. And so you might say, well, that's a great idea, but I'm not going to do it. So, I mean, maybe you can just walk down a street. I don't know. Just go hike your town. Go ruck. That's a big thing, and just do it on a street or something. I don't know. That's my list, Dan, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, one of the things that I might add, not another activity, but I might add, is that many of these things would work well for the whole family. And so perhaps you want to schedule something for the families that are involved in your student ministry. They could go on a hike together. You could have a lake day. There's several things. The advantage of having your parents there with you is, it's twofold. One, it gives an opportunity to build relationships and memories and all of that. But then you don't have to worry as much about chaperones. Because, hey, guess what? Their parents are there. They can tell them, no, get off of that big rock before you jump and break your neck. I mean, it's important.
Yeah, it is. It is. By the way, and be prepared for that. If you go canoeing, you've never done it before, kids love finding big rocks that they can either throw or jump off of.
Yeah.
And they will do both. And they will do it simultaneously if they can. And so that's why it's better just to take a Frisbee and say, hey, you know what? Let's throw this Frisbee instead of the rock.
It's like having a treat ready for your dog. Is that what we're saying? That get that out of their mouth.
Yeah. But just be like, here's the thing I know teenagers, I've recognized about teenagers, like if we're floating down the river and they see a big rock and they're like, oh man, I could climb that and I could jump off of that. That's okay. Like I'm fine with that. But you need to go make sure that there's not another big rock underneath the water where they're jumping.
Yeah.
Right. No, in all seriousness, that goes back to your safety thing. Sometimes we have to be the bad guy and be like, hey guys, that would be an awesome rock to jump off of, but you're not going to do that.
Right.
And, but then there's other places where it's fine. It's acceptable. It's safe. It might not be considered safe to everybody. And by the way, on your safety issue, I think that's a great piece of advice. I would just say that there's an argument that probably could be made that with certain kids in our youth group, nothing is safe.
That's true.
So, anyway.
Well, hopefully we've given you some ideas. Chris has shared a great list of 10 to spark some ideas, and we'll have those in the show notes as you think about your summer months. Again, the big things I'm sure you've already got scheduled for the summer of 22. But you've got to think about the smaller things, and maybe you've got all of those things already planned out. And so you're thinking ahead to the summer of 23. You're just totally on top of it. Not all of us are that way.
Yeah. And Dan, one thing this is just something that I've found that is helpful for my parents, and many people, this is just kind of common knowledge. And I think many people know this, but I'll say it. They love getting the schedule well in advance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't made a summer schedule yet, like even if it's just going to be normal, like in your youth group, maybe you're not doing a lot of this different things, but you're just going to be in the youth room and you're going to be teaching through a series or something, man, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular, right? You can go to canva.com and make something that looks pretty good for cheap, next to nothing. Or you can just write up a blank white document and just say, here's the Wednesdays and that throughout the summer, and here's what we're going to be doing. Here's what we're going to be studying. But I've found that parents really enjoy having a list of things that we will be doing so that they know,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
here's what's happening, here's what's going on. And it really helps you out as a leader to not have to over communicate each week. All you got to do is just remind them, hey guys, remember this is on the schedule. Looking forward to it, and that kind of thing. So if you haven't done that yet, now's the time to do it. Try to get it done by the 1st of May, and or at least by the end of school, so that you can get that into the hands of your parents.
Well, the summer months are fun and can be a lot of great relational time with your students. And so we want to encourage you to embrace that. And it doesn't have to be super expensive in that process. And so that was the reason for our list today. Well, we would just want to encourage you to keep going, to keep serving, to keep loving on your students. If you're enjoying the podcast, we always encourage you to share that with others, to talk with others about it. Give us a like, a review. Those type of things help as we try to reach out with our podcast. God's been blessing in some big ways lately, and it's been fun to watch. But we're just so thankful for you. And so as the summer continues and goes on, we're going to be praying for you and your students. And we just want to keep serving because student ministry matters.
Thanks for listening to the Student Ministry Matters podcast. Get connected at studentministrymatters.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Student Ministry Matters. Until next time, keep up the great work with your students because the work matters.